Hello everyone, welcome to this series of videos where I'm talking about operations strategy in a global environment. In the first couple of videos, we looked at why is globalization important, the pros and cons of globalization, not the cons, just pros of globalization. In the second video, we talked about missions and strategies in general. Now let's look at the ways in which what are the frameworks you can use to analyze operations strategy. This is important. So that you can understand how the operation strategy sits within a larger general strategy that the company has, and how it can function, right? And how can you say that the operation strategy that you've implemented is working, is doing well, or needs tweaking, or things like that. So what are the frameworks for analyzing a strategy? And that's what we'll talk about in this video. And after this, there'll be one more video where I'll be talking about the last topic related to globalization, which is outsourcing, right? So, but first, let's talk about analyzing global strategies, right? Okay, so now strategy and issues are different based upon what time in a product's life cycle that is. So this is the famous reverse bathtub curve. So it's called the reverse bathtub curve because, I mean, if you flip it around, sort of looks like a bathtub. So the idea is that any successful product starts off and its sales slowly start increasing. They keep going up, and then but eventually it comes to an inflection point where the increase in sales sort of reduces, and then slowly the product reaches maturity, and the sales sort of flatten out, and then once a product has sort of become really mature and has been around for a long time, new products or similar products sort of replace, then slowly it goes down and it becomes obsolete after a while. So for example, early products are autonomous vehicles, vehicles that drive by themselves. They're very early part of their life cycle. Same with augmented and virtual realities. Virtual reality obviously has seen some growth, and people are buying more and more of these virtual reality goggles, for example. Electric vehicles, even 10 years ago, electric vehicles might have been here in the introductory period, but now they are definitely in their growth period. Many different car companies have their own electric vehicles, and people are buying more and more of them. Same goes for 3D printers. A maturity, Boeing 787, for example. And there's nothing to say that a product that has reached maturity won't stay in maturity for a very long time. For example, we have the hybrid engine vehicles, right? So hybrid engine vehicles are coming towards the end of their maturity. It looks like they're going in decline, but they might not. They might come here and they might stay here for, say, 50 years, because hybrid cars are much easier to produce, and also hybrid cars give you the option of being able to put in gas when you need it, when you run out of electricity, right? So they give you an option of a different fuel source other than a single one. So it's always good to have options, right? Now, obviously, there are environmental impacts and everything related to that, but products that reach maturity might stay as mature products for very, very long periods of time. That's something to keep in mind. Now, products that are in decline, printed textbooks, as you might all know. Cigarettes are another thing. Definitely, just cigarettes by themselves are definitely a product that's in decline. DVDs, nobody buys DVDs anymore, unless, of course, you are one of those people who think that streaming services have become so much more expensive that maybe it's just time to go back to DVDs. Who knows? I'm not saying I'm one of those people, but I'm saying that I'm one of those people, right? Okay. So what are the frameworks? So again, based upon where it is in its life cycle, the way you analyze it will be different. But here are some strategies that you can use. SWOT analysis is always a good strategy, is always a nice way of coming up with a good strategy. What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? What are the opportunities? What are its threats, right? Based upon the mission that you have for the company. And here you are specifically looking at the mission, not just for the whole company. You might be looking at just the mission for your department, operations department, or maybe even just the design department within the operations department, right? You might have your own mission. Then you look at the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats for your particular division. And then based upon that, you come up with a strategy, right? So the strategic development process looks like this. So you analyze the environment, you identify, do the SWOT analysis, you determine the corporate mission, then you form a strategy, and the strategy then trickle down to different departments, right? It's a very common thing. So 10 years ago, it was very common for companies to say, go green, right? So they wanted to go green. Everything that they wanted to do was green 10, 15 years ago. Now, I'm not saying that companies don't want to go green, but a lot of companies have implemented green strategies in the past, but many companies these days don't care about it that much. It's just not a great thing for the environment, but that's where we are right now, right? So going green was the strategy. So if going green was the general strategy, if you looked at the operations strategy in the operation at the operations level, how did that work? So when I was working in one of my previous colleges, the college decided to go green, right? And so how did that impact me as a professor? Well, they wanted me, the college said that they wanted me to transition from giving paper exams to doing fully online exams, from paper assignments to fully online assignments. They had trash pickup was reduced from every day to twice a week, and we were asked to separate our trash and recycling and make sure that trash worked in a certain way and reduce the amount of trash. So there were like competitions to see which department reduced its trash most and things like that. So a lot of different ways in which the going green general strategy was implemented at the operational level, right? So printers were you could use the printer, but then the amount of the number of pages you could print for free was reduced, and then you had to pay for printing, which sort of deterred people from actually printing. So that's the idea there, right? So you have a general strategy for the whole company, then it trickles down to the operations level, right? So you have to identify key success factors that support the core competency, right? And then you have to integrate OM activities with them. So if you are competing on differentiation versus if you are competing on cost, the way you would go about implementing the same strategy of going green is different than if you are looking at if your main unique selling point is cost versus differentiation, right? Or responsiveness. So if you're FedEx and you want to be responsive and you have to get a package from say North Carolina to Washington state overnight, right? Then the only way in which you can do that is by sending it on a plane. And if you're sending something on a plane, it uses a lot of fuel and it has a large carbon footprint. So if FedEx has an idea of going green, then it either has to say that, hey, we cannot send packages overnight, which it cannot do because its main strategy is, in fact, competing on speed of response. So, well, then it has to say that, well, this is the best we can do. That we will put all packages into a single aircraft. We will make our trucks and trains and other delivery vehicles so quick that all the different packages that need to go from one location to another location are consolidated enough that the carbon footprint of each individual package goes down, right? So that's the best they can do, but they cannot have strategies that go against the core competency of the company. That's the important thing to keep in mind, right? And the same goes for, say, if you're competing on cost. So if you're competing on cost, you cannot say that I will not use a certain material because it is not environmentally friendly, because the alternative material might be more expensive. So then for your company to implement the going green strategy, you would have to find a way in which you can acquire the alternate material at a cheaper price. Either, one way to do it is that you fund factories of suppliers. So the companies do this a lot. So GM gives out loans to companies that supply to them, so that they're able to do better jobs of supplying materials to them, because GM makes a lot more money from selling cars than the interest they'll make by loaning money to some of the companies that supply to them, right? So there are lots of different ways in which these things can be integrated. Yeah. So it's important to know what the key success factors are, right? So what are the key success factors for your product quality? What are the key success factors for human resources, for supply chain, for inventory, for your scheduling, for your maintenance scheduling, right? So all of these things. So it's important to know what the key success factors are, Right? So one of the ways in which you can figure this out is by doing something called activity mapping, where you look at all the different activities that you do and then you map it to the main mission that you have. So your competitive advantage is low cost. So Southwest Airlines gives you low cost, is a low cost airlines, right? So at least that was the case. Now they have become slightly more expensive, but they are still the low cost airlines. And these are all the different activities that they do, right? So courteous but limited passenger service, right? So they are courteous, but they have very limited passenger service. So they have automated ticketing. Back in the day, before they implemented this, you didn't even get a seat number on Southwest. You just bought a ticket and you went and stood in line. And like a movie theater, once you entered the airline, you could sit anywhere, right? They did not allow baggage transfers for a while. They had no meals, but their customer service representatives were courteous, right? So that was one activity that they did. So they also their main bread and butter was short haul point-to-point routes, right? Often to secondary airports. So you're not talking about going from, say, Chicago to Los Angeles, but going from, say, Ithaca to a place like Syracuse, for example, or from, not Syracuse, Ithaca to Syracuse is only an hour away. So Ithaca to, say, someplace, say, Worcester, Massachusetts, right? So you could fly from Ithaca to Worcester, Massachusetts. Southwest did not do that. Southwest was mainly in the Southwest. That's why there's Southwest Airlines, but something like that, two very regional airports, right? So that's their idea. So they have lower gate costs at secondary airports, and they had higher number of flights for the same number of employees. So employees did not wait between flights, right? They had very frequent but reliable schedules. So they did specific flights only, and they did that on a continuous basis. Pilot training required only on one type of aircraft, which is not true for them right now. But back in the day, all their aircraft was a single. They would only buy a single type of aircraft, and all their pilots would be trained only on that single aircraft. They didn't have to worry about pilots getting certified for multiple different types of aircraft or anything like that, right? So this is the idea of activity mapping. So you look at the main things that the company does, and you map out the different activities that go into it, right? And that's the idea. So that's the way in which you analyze a company's decision. So here is another example of a brand name drug company versus a generic drug company. The way they do product design, the way they do quality, process, location, right? Layout, human resources, supply chain. All of this are very different between a brand name drugs company and a generic drugs company, right? Generic drug company is looking at already expired patents and making generic drugs, as opposed to brand name company, which does a lot of R&D and comes up with new drugs, and then they patent them out and they make money from that. And that's the idea of the difference between the two. So you can look at the different things that happen within operations management, product design, quality, process, location, layout, human resources, and whatnot, and how they are different, right, for these two companies. Okay, so this video is again gone on much longer than the 10 minutes that I promised. So I'm going to stop it here. The next and the last video for this week, we'll be talking about the last video in the series of videos is about outsourcing. So when you talk about globalization, you cannot end talk about globalization. Hell, you start the talk about globalization. In fact, using outsourcing is the first thing that people usually talk about. So let's talk about outsourcing and what is outsourcing and what people think outsourcing is and what it actually isn't. What are the pros and cons of outsourcing and all of that. We'll talk about that in the next video. I'll see you all there. All right. Take care.